Peter, how does it feel to be the Doctor?
Wonderful. I might be being very selfish to say that, but it does. It's an extraordinary privilege to play this part, and it's quite frightening when you see it all going together like that, and you go, "Is that really me? Middle of that, being Doctor Who?" But I'm just very proud to be a part of all. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful program.
And I mean, being such a fan, whenever I see a new title sequence, that particularly sends a thrill down me. It kind of hairs on the back of my neck stand up. What's it like for you to be at the centre of that new title sequence? When you first saw that, what was that like?
I've only seen that once,
Has it?
very briefly last night, and it wasn't, so I look forward to seeing it again. But yes, no,
it's great.
Oh, good.
It's really good. It's really, really good. And Jenna, how does it feel for you to have a new face? I mean, it feels the story, the way the story dealt with your character having to deal with a new face for the Doctor was so interesting. Does that reflect a little bit what it's like for you as an actor to deal with it as well?
Not really. I think it was a really interesting story to tell and really complex to try and get your head around as well. But it personally, between me and Peter, it wasn't like that. I think what it felt like very much was something else and a new thing, and kind of I just felt a responsibility to be as open as I could possibly be to change and to allow Peter to explore in any which way he wanted to, and which he did, and has been very brave and bold, and I think the show feels very rejuvenated.
You do spend quite a lot of the episode being quite angry, though. That's quite different. Yeah.
I know, it's really, I think, this is what I think is so wonderful, is it's thrown everything off kilter and turned it on its head, especially for Clara, because suddenly she's faced with this man that she can't figure him out and she can't control, and he doesn't respond in the same way as she's used to. So that is really kind of frustrating and confusing for her, and how to figure out how this now works, because it's so totally different. It's been a really interesting story to tell over the series.
That scene in the restaurant, when you're quite a long scene where you're kind of playing with each other and kind of working each other, that must have been a fantastic scene to do. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautifully written scene. So, I mean, one of the great things we've had in this series thing are extremely strong scripts, and when you have material that is that good, you know, you can just concentrate on the acting, and not sometimes actors really are called upon to do a bit of damage control when the script's not quite up to what it should. But this, it's great. You just really surf through it all. So we're just very lucky to have Steven doing it.
Yeah. And also so unusual to have a scene where we're just sat at a table talking as well for so long.
Yeah.
It did,
and also it was great because with Jenna and I, we're sort of getting to know each other sort of as the program unfolds, because we didn't know each other before. So really, in a way, the program sort of charts Jenna and Peter getting to know each other as well as the Doctor and Clara.
It does feel, Stephen, there's a slightly different kind of tone to it, a slightly different pace, longer scenes. More, is that fair? Certainly in this episode.
It was the I think to different degrees that carries on throughout the series in different ways. But that's not an accident. That was a very, very explicit and clear idea. I was starting to think there was a danger we were getting faster every year, and soon the episodes would be over in 4 minutes, and I thought we'd have to do something else.
And when you were thought of casting Peter, and what came first? The idea to make the Doctor this very different step from the previous three, or Peter's come first as an actor, and then you kind of worked out through the character and what you wanted to do? I'm afraid, given that this has worked out, I think, really, really well, the decision was arrived at phenomenal speed. I sort of realised we couldn't just go for another Matt Smith type. We couldn't go for another quirky young man with interesting hair. People would start to notice that that's what we were doing. Yeah. People would start styling their hair in improbable ways in the hope of being cast. Peter just sort of popped in. I'd known Peter for quite a few years, because I remember just when Doctor Who was coming back, the thick of it was just starting, and Peter came looming up to me in a sinister fashion at a party. And I thought, that's fantastic, that's the bloke from the thick of it. I can talk about the thick of it. He wouldn't let me. He just kept going on and on about Doctor Who. So I thought, okay, he's interested. And many years later, he just came into my head. I thought, what if it was him? But you always wonder, are you the only person who thinks that? So I spoke to my old friend Mark Gatiss, and I said, I didn't say anything but Peter. I said, make me a list of who you think should be Doctor Who. He spent the next 7 days solidly writing names, obviously because he's Mark, but right at the top of the list with the space underneath to indicate that it was the top choice was Peter. And then I went and talked to Brian and Andy, and we were just talking about whether we thought this was a good idea. And Andy was really into it. And Andy Pryor's casting sense is impeccable. And Brian loved the idea because he knew him from Children of Earth. So it's just like everybody had the same idea at once, and we should just go for it. Then we got Peter around to my house to do an audition, which is cool. You just get Peter Capaldi to come round to your house and perform Doctor Who in your living room. I was thinking, this is what I do with my life.
We have to talk about the flirting issue, which you also talked about in an interview. So, is it true you wanted to make sure that this was different and that there wouldn't be none of that? And this was it does feel to me like a return to the very beginnings of the Doctor, kind of that he was a different person who wouldn't even go there or anything.
I think that was inflated in the article into something that it never was. Because I don't recall having this conversation with Stephen or anyone. But I can remember in my own head thinking that Papa and Nicole would be a dangerous route to take.
Unless you met a nice dinosaur, in which case...
Yeah, you flirt with a dinosaur.
Yeah,
that's what happens. Yeah. Did you want to make? I mean, you did. You address every issue in this episode, don't you?
It's an interesting one.
You recognise them a bit from a previous episode.
How powerful that flirting thing is from people. Because David Tennant was a magnificent, brilliant, flirty, sexy Doctor. And when Matt came in to do it, he decided that he would be rubbish at flirting and kissing. If you look at every single time he does it, he's a disaster. Oh, he never works. If someone kisses him, he flails like that. The only time he successfully manages to kiss, he realises River isn't actually in the room. So we haven't had a properly flirtatious Doctor for years, really. Sure. And no, the idea had sort of peaked and gone away. But my God, it worked in its time.
Yeah.
I don't think Doctor Who is a lot richer for that scene between David and Billy on the beach in Doomsday. But you keep changing. However, it's got to be said, for those who actually have pored over the classic series, flirting did not begin in 2005. Watch Patrick Troughton in the first episode of Enemy of the World. He's practically climbing over her. It's ridiculous. And actually, William Hartnell flirting with Barbara is disgusting. It really is.
Yeah.
Now look at it. Every time Ian Chesterton says something, you're an idiot. Barbara says something, you're fantastic. And it's the beginning of that story. Yeah. The old fraud.
Fair enough. There are some wonderfully creepy, kind of scary moments in this episode. And getting Ben Wheatley, who can't be here, can he, today? But did you make that decision to kind of, you presumably all his films are incredibly horrible and creepy. Yeah. Is that what attracted you to getting him in?
Getting this highly talented director in, yes. Well, actually, it was that he got in touch with us and said he really, really wanted to do Doctor Who, and we thought he's a brilliant director, so we went straight for that. He was, I have to say, he was not coming in and saying, I have to make Doctor Who like my movies at all. He was very, very concerned about he was making Doctor Who and very clear about it. But we knew he would deliver on the creepiness.
Peter, did you speak to Matt and David or anything about about the kind of whole experience of being the Doctor and all of that? And what did they say? Did they give you anything?
That's private.
Is it?
It's a very unique and small club of people who know about this. No, Matt and David have been fabulous because it's a unique position to be in, and they understand it. They also know the personnel, and they've been wonderful. I mean, I took Matt to lunch and he turned up in crutches. Oh. He came in with crutches. I said, "What's wrong? What's happened to you, mate?" He said, "This show, mate, this show." And I thought, my God, I thought he's 30 years younger than me and he's in crutches. What am I going to do? And David sent me, before it all started, David sent me an email saying, "Is it true what I'm hearing?" And I said, "Well, it might be true." So he decided, for reasons best known to himself, to invite me for coffee in Soho House, where the two of us could be seen in a corner.
Yes, a word about discretion.
But he's been great. No, both of them have been terrific.
And the Scottish question, I love the way you addressed that as well. That the accent issue, was that always from the start? Do you think you just got to do it in your own accent? What's the point of?
Well, actually, one of the first things we talked about that day, wasn't it? And which you said, and I think it was a very right thing to say, I need to move the Doctor to me. And that's absolutely right. But also, what does it mean? I mean, his accent must be acquired randomly. It doesn't make any sense what accent he has, does it, particularly?
No.
Why shouldn't he be Scottish?
And also, he's had an English accent for years.
Yeah.
So it's the idea that he doesn't have an accent is just ridiculous. But I just felt that it was important to, as Stephen says, bring the Doctor to me to try and make, and that's sort of what I've seen with a lot of actors who I enjoy. They don't become the part becomes them. So you pull it more closely to yourself. And in a way, funnily enough, I think the Doctor is closer to me than, for instance, Malcolm Tucker was. He was a much tougher, not tougher, but there was a bigger leap. There was more stuff to do, more of a distance to cover.
You seem much nicer than Malcolm Tucker.
I am much nicer.
What's the most fun thing for you of your first season as Doctor Who?
Jenna has been absolutely incredible. I have to say that well, first of all, the welcome that I was given by the entire crew and the whole, all of the people down there in Cardiff has been fantastic. But working with Jenna has been a great pleasure. She's, I think, an incredible actress, and it's been so funny and so moving. And she and what she has to do in this season is so demanding, and she does it with great grace and class. So I think really my favourite thing has been working with Jenna.
Jenna, what's your favourite thing about?
Just to see a new Doctor being born and getting to watch that growth, and also working with Peter, who it's really interesting how fearless he really is, and also somebody who is totally unafraid to make so many plans and then utterly abandon them in a second to try do and make something different is really incredible to watch.
Wow. And Stephen, when you finished filming, is there anything surprising about kind of watching it all now? The episodes you've written, seeing Peter perform it. Is it kind of how it was in your head, or is it kind of different?
Oh no, it's always better than it was in my head. That's the point at which it's starting to work, is when it really escapes from you. You think, oh blimey, I didn't know the scene was about that. I had no idea that's what I was writing about. That is when it gets amazing. But I was just watching the long restaurant scene you were mentioning there. I remember that at the read-through, which was when I realised we were onto something, because I leaned over and said to Brian, this is amazing, because the two of them were as good as that at the read-through.
Oh.
Everyone was roaring, and it was just perfect at the read-through, which is always nerve-wracking, because sometimes you have to spend a long time on set to say, could you just, all that work and thinking you've done since then, could you not do that? Just like you did at the read-through. But actually they did, so didn't do any of that. It was just simple and clear, and given that we never auditioned them together, as it were, as a double act, it grows in strength and charm as the show goes on, and goes to some very strange places. There's some very different scenes in this episode, in this series, between the Doctor and his best friend.